Hello, and welcome to Auto Be Careful, the place for car safety, news, and information. I'm Gene, and today we're going to talk about how AM radios in cars can help keep you safe and why they're not being included in some electric vehicles. I want to start with a personal story. Back in December of 2018, I decided to take a road trip from California to Chicago and back. At the time, I owned an electric vehicle, and the nation's charging infrastructure wasn't nearly as robust as it is today, which resulted in more frequent and longer stops to charge my vehicle. At one of these stops, I was caught in a blizzard in rural Nebraska, which caused a delay of about 2 days. I was fortunate enough to stop at a hotel to wait out the storm with a few others. Communication in these extreme conditions was pretty limited, so while we all waited on the hotel lobby for updates, we depended on one of the few technologies robust enough to work: AM radio. Let's take a minute to talk about radio. Radio communication was invented in the 1890s, with the first public broadcast occurring on Christmas Eve in 1906. The first commercial radio station was founded in 1920, and 2 years later was the first time a radio was installed in a vehicle. Less than 10 years later, vehicles began to offer radios as an option, although these early models cost a quarter of the vehicle's price. Imagine spending $30,000 on a brand new vehicle and needing to spend an extra $7,500 just to get a radio. Obviously, prices have come down a lot over the years, but since the ability to play physical media wasn't available until the 1960s, radio dominated early car entertainment. While FM radio wasn't added to vehicles until the 1950s, both AM and FM radio became the standard for vehicles for decades. These two technologies differ in some critical ways. There's a bit of physics involved, but the end result is each one has some advantages and some disadvantages. FM radio is less prone to interference, which makes it a more stable signal. Additionally, FM radio has better sound quality, which makes it the popular choice for listening to things like music. On the other hand, AM radio can travel over longer distances, is less prone to being blocked by physical barriers like buildings, and it's cheaper. That makes it a great fit for talk radio, plus, it works much better in more rural areas. This is important because since the early days of radio, it's been used to communicate information to listeners. Radio can broadcast a sports game, a talk show, news, or emergency information. That last one is essential to people like the ones who are waiting out that blizzard with me in the hotel lobby. If you've ever been in an emergency situation like that blizzard or another severe weather event, you know how important it is to get the most up to date information as quickly as possible. It turns out that AM radio is practically built for this purpose. It can quickly and cheaply transmit information over great distances without the need for a lot of infrastructure like wires and other equipment. That makes it more reliable than just about any other form of communication. This is especially critical in rural areas where that infrastructure may not exist and listeners are very spread out. Even if you don't live in a rural area, you may one day need to rely on radio for communication. If you ever dreamed of taking a road trip like I did, you may encounter some areas where AM radio is your only listening option. Plus, if you ever get caught up in a severe weather event like I was, you'll appreciate this technology that much more. All of this is to say, AM radio is an important technology for road safety, but it's becoming a bit of a controversial issue with the increase in use of electric vehicles. You may be surprised to learn that electric vehicles often don't include AM radio, even though gasoline vehicles carry them as standard. This isn't a coincidence. It turns out that the electrical components in an electric vehicle cause interference with a large portion of AM radio stations. Early electric vehicles worked around this problem by adding shielding material between these components and the radio to reduce this interference. Unfortunately, given the overall decline in popularity of AM radio, many manufacturers are deciding to ditch AM radio because the cost is no longer worth it. As a result, your next electric vehicle may not include this essential piece of safety technology. Fortunately, this has caused concerns about road safety, and Congress is taking notice. A bill has been introduced in the legislature called the AM Radio for Every Vehicle Act of 2025. This bill requires manufacturers to include AM radio as standard equipment in every new car sold within the next 6 years. This bill has bipartisan support and will hopefully make it through to the president's desk quickly. Then manufacturers will need to implement solutions to prevent this electrical interference with AM radios and will once again begin to see it as standard equipment in electric vehicles. Following this, drivers will be able to continue to rely on AM radio to receive critical information and plan for their personal safety. So that's a look at AM radio, how it can help keep you safe, and what's being done to make sure it sticks around. As always, thanks for watching. I hope you learned something, and remember to like and subscribe.